we can say that in a very general sense, beauty and goodness are about unity, like a healthy human body, healthy human mind, organism is one in which all the various parts are able to cohere with one another in such a way that that they're not destroying one another, that they're allowing for this flourishing of the whole because they're woven together into this coherent, unified tapestry. And so you could say that beauty and goodness are in a sense order, but it's not just orderliness either. So if we're looking at like a painted thing and it's just the color blue, like I'm sure there's somebody, I'm sure there's a postmodernist work that's exactly that, and they're like, it's the deepest thing ever. But I mean, in all seriousness, if you're looking at just a blue canvas, you're going to be like, well, that's unity, that's coherence, but like, who cares? That's just blue, man. Like, there's this longing for complexity, this longing for that unity to be amplified through the incorporation of more difference, more contrast, more diversity. And I think it is exactly what you see in music too. Like, you don't want to just listen to the same note over and over again. You want diversity that is coming together into a coherent whole. And so fundamentally, I think that illustrates what the human love impulse really amounts to. We want to do that. We want to participate in that. We want to become part of that.
Harmony, actually. It's like a completely blue painting. The thing that's missing in that is the element of harmony, actually. It's like there's something about when all of these subcultures have overlaps in the things that they're pointing to that harmonizes and produces this really powerful forward motivation. And I think that that's replicated in music, it's replicated in art, in literature. You're bringing together all these kind of disparate approaches and then just tying them up at the end of the novel. If it's a plot or something, it just, bam, it just sort of hits. The same could be said with music as well. You're kind of walking this balancing act between chaos and order, and then you put all of these pieces together and it all makes sense all of a sudden, right? The guitar player's doing one thing, the bass player's doing another. It's like, oh my God, what's going on? And then boom, they just line up all of a sudden.
And what's really interesting is how much harder harmony is than unison. I started singing in a choir recently, and it's unbelievable the mental gymnastics that are required and the amount of certainty in your own mission to be able to sing something that is different from the person who is standing right next to you. And you have to be able to hear them and respond to them and blend in a way that you don't when it's unison, because then it's like, okay, we're all doing the same thing. This is really, really easy. And I know what we're doing because everybody's doing the same thing. And so there is this idea of mission that becomes inherent in that, because you have to have all of these cultures that have a shared mission without the specific implementation of the process looking the same. Does that make sense?
And I think what we're pointing to here is that
harmony, actually. It's like
we're pointing to the fact that, like, especially if we think about the way that we have become so hyper-individualized in the modern world and the diversity of subcultures too, there's this need for fluidity there, this need for the harmonization of difference, sometimes very radical differences, to be able to come together into something cohesive. That's a challenge that has never really been faced before. If you look back to most traditional cultures throughout history, again, it's like they had very specific ways of doing things. They had very specific methods of child rearing and education and possible paths for whatever your place in society was going to be. And so it was all rather rigid in a sense. And now it's just like free jazz, man. Like, we're all just all over the place doing all kinds of different things. how do you bring that together into something that actually works? Because I think it's not working. We've created a world in which people are as alienated and lonely and purposeless and unstable as they've ever been. So it feels like there's got to be a solution to that problem, but I don't feel like the solution to that problem is going to be returning to a kind of cultural homogeneity in which everybody's doing the same thing. So how do you square that circle? I think the answer has to be something like this. I think the answer has to be that rather than grounding a society's cohesion in a kind of well-defined normalcy, rather it's going to have to be more teleological, where the thing that brings us together is not that we're all doing the same thing, but rather the thing that brings us all together is that we have a common end goal of some sort, a common ideal, at least, that we're trying to realize. And so, and again, that I think that's the thing we're lacking right now, because we need to be able to actually say, at least on some level, there could be differing degrees of how vague or how precise we could put this. And it does seem like it needs to be quite vague, quite general, but we've got to be able to say, okay, this is what human flourishing actually is.
Kind of reminds me of the story of Jesus wandering in the desert and meeting all of these temptations, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, because there are escapes from loneliness that are cheap and ultimately unproductive in the long run, but they will get you out, right? Like buying something, or
Buying someone,
buying some experience. I mean, I don't remember what Jesus' temptations are, but like, I think they're lust and greed and his power, you know, Satan's like, I'll make you a king of men and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, that could seem appealing in the short term too. And so the act of transcending that is what we're kind of called upon in this moment in our weird little subcultures, in orienting ourselves towards that which is good. Right? It's so hard to define good compared to evil.